I'm Delbert Day, and I live in Rolla, Missouri. And for over 50 years, I've been a professor in the ceramic engineering department at Rolla. I received my Bachelor of Science in Ceramic Engineering from what was then called the Missouri School of Mines and Metallurgy. And at the time, I didn't have any intentions to go to graduate school. But while I was an undergraduate, I went to my first meeting of the American Ceramic Society and participated in the student speaking contest and gave a simple little talk on glass, which was of interest to me. And about 2 weeks later, I got a call from a professor at Penn State University who had heard my little talk, and he wanted to know if I was interested in graduate school. And I really hadn't thought anything about that, but he indicated that he had a fellowship there and that if I was interested, he would invite me to come to the campus and pay my expenses, travel expenses, which was a good thing because I didn't have very much money. But my wife and I went out to Penn State, and we make a long story short, I went to Penn State and got my master's degree and PhD in ceramic technology. Looking back on things, I can see that that was one of the best decisions that I made in my life. Maybe I didn't have the soundest of reasons, but it turned out to be a very good decision. I tell my undergraduates and graduate students that there's only about 5 really important decisions that you have to make in your life, and you want to try to get those right if you can. And certainly one of those 5 is, what field are you going to go into? What do you want to do for the 40 working years? And if you make the right choice there, you're probably going to do very, very well. But I would hope that my work as a professor was equally good. I've been fortunate to have over 80 postgraduates and graduate students and visiting scholars the time I've taught at Rolla, or the Missouri University of Science and Technology. And I got into glass because that was what I worked on and studied at Penn State. I had decided I wanted to go into teaching when I left there pretty much. When I was an undergraduate at Missouri, I had developed a tutoring program. You know, because you need to survive, you have to eat every day. And I found out that I enjoyed that. And then when I went to Penn State, I continued to tutor students privately. And somehow the football department or athletic department found out that I was tutoring, and so I was contacted, and I ended up then tutoring the football players at Penn State, which was a lot of fun. And so I went back to Rolla then and started teaching, and pretty much followed the normal career. I had graduate students, and we were doing research on diffusion in glass and the mechanical damping of glass, which are kind of interesting topics to about a dozen scientists around the world. But after about 20 years then, I ended up going on a sabbatical, and when I came back from that, I was contacted with another professor on the problem of how to treat patients with liver cancer. And so the idea was, or that we came up with, was to go and develop some type of glass bead that could be put inside the body so that you were irradiating the malignant tumors in a very localized way. And the problem with treating liver cancer is that it's a very difficult disease to treat, because if you have to use external beam, there's a lot of tissue between the beam and the tumor in the liver. And you have to then limit the amount of radiation so that you don't damage or kill that tissue. And so radiation was not a very successful way of treating that. And so the idea was, how do you go and miniaturize your source of radioactivity so that you can get it in the liver? And that took us then into the field of biomaterials, which I've been working with, and eventually led to the company that we formed called Mo-Sci Corporation. Mm-hmm. I divide my career into kind of two portions. I had taught at the university for 20 years, and then I went off to Sandia National Labs for a sabbatical. And at that time, I had held one patent, which resulted from some consulting work I had done for a company, and they had patented that technology. But anyway, then when I was at Sandia, I got working on some interesting projects that they had, and it just turned out that that resulted in some material which they patented. And then in another 20 years, I had gone from one up to more than 40. I became more interested, I guess, in looking or working on problems that had some type where they were looking for a practical solution of some type. I call research the pathway to the future. I have a little talk that I give to students on research, the pathway to the future. And I think probably every engineer, to some degree or another, is involved in research. They may not call it that at the time, but it's actually research. Well, I've enjoyed immensely the 50-plus years I've been a member of the society. And of course, I started as a student member when there were many more schools that were teaching ceramic engineering than there are now, unfortunately. And then once I started working, I continued to be a member of the society and was involved heavily in the glass division. I felt that a person, certainly a professional person, should be a member of their professional society. I also found that I was meeting a lot of very interesting people, people whose names I had read in textbooks and things like that, but it's fascinating to meet the people. I enjoyed also just the fellowship. It's a smaller professional organization than a lot, and I don't know, I guess I have kind of a fondness for smaller groups rather than huge groups. And so it was something that I enjoyed, and I was fortunate enough then to become a member of the board of directors and eventually the president of the society. If you're coming from, say, mechanical engineering and you find yourself now working in industry, in the ceramic industry, you still ought to get involved. And you can do that, of course, by just coming to the annual meeting of the society, or if you're on the research side, there may be papers that you can go and publish through the American Ceramic Society Bulletin and Journal. And you may just go and have a friend, a colleague there at work that's going to the American Ceramic Society. But my advice would be, find a way to get involved and learn more about your profession and develop a network of people, which we all know is extremely important. And I try to encourage my students and people that I meet to join the society because visibility is important, and particularly when you're starting out.